Anybody? I was born over a bakery. That is so common. That's a southern term, common. I lived in the fear of being common all my life. Don't do that. That's common. Those are common people. That's common. She had another word. It was at the other end of the spectrum. Uppity. Watch it. You're getting uppity. So you couldn't be common and you couldn't be uppity. You had to be in the middle with God and my mother. Later on, she told everybody, I was born over a bakery. See, the bakery was downstairs, the family was upstairs. She said, I was born over a bakery. I'm a pioneer, and that was pure class. Well, we have this little log cabin in downtown Dallas, and it's supposed to be John Neely Bryan's cabin, who was the founder of Dallas, 1841. He came from Van Buren, Arkansas. He had founded Van Buren, Arkansas, naming it after the President of the United States, Martin Van Buren. He comes down to the Trinity River. Now, I was asked to bring some lore. Well, I'm bringing it. None of this is proven. He sees this river. It has three forks. We have a restaurant named Three Forks. My friends thought it was because it had three forks at the plate. And I said, no. Named after the river. The Trinity River had three forks, and supposedly it was named Trinity because of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Now, that's one bit of lore. Otherwise, who knows? But John Neely Bryan comes and settles on the Trinity River, names it Trinity. And they ask him, now, your little city is growing. Your little trading post, it was called Bryan's Trading Post. It's growing. What are you going to name it? Well, I named Van Buren after the President of the United States. Who's president? James K. Polk. Now that's where he could have really screwed it up for Dallas. Where are you from, Polk? It would never have been a television series. So I said, who's the vice president under James K. Polk? This is just strictly speculation. Well, who's the vice president? George Mifflin Dallas, who was from Philadelphia. Anybody from Philadelphia? George Mifflin Dallas is buried there in the Benjamin Franklin plot because Benjamin Franklin's grandson was married to George Mifflin Dallas's sister. I don't know if you got all that, but it doesn't matter anyway. But that's why George Mifflin Dallas is related indirectly to Benjamin Franklin. So he's buried up in Philadelphia. George Mifflin Dallas never came down here, but he was vice president, and the story goes that he was named, that John Neely Bryan named the city after the vice president under James K. Polk. Now we've got that little log cabin there on the courthouse grounds. Supposedly John Neely Bryan's little cabin. But see, my mother was there. And she said, no, that wasn't his cabin. That was a saloon over on Main Street. And it sat there forever. Because it was a vacant lot, and they just let that little log cabin sit there. And finally, they took it to the state of the Texas Centennial and put it in our big 100 years of Texas celebration in 1936. And someone said, oh, I bet that belonged to John Neely Bryan. And everybody got excited and saved it. So, who knows? A word about the Texas Centennial. The Texas Centennial was in 1936. It was in 1836 at Sam Houston, and I'll say a little bit more about Sam because we all love Sam Houston down in Texas. Sam Houston, on April 21st, that's San Jacinto Day, April 21st, that's a great day in Texas history, 1836, defeated the Mexican army and declared Texas a republic and himself President of the United States. But we'll get to Sam. That's our date, April 21st, 1836. Well, that meant in 1936, in the middle of the Depression, Texas was going to be 100 years old. So all the mayors of the big cities in Texas met in 1934 to plan this big party in 1936. Mayor of Houston said it'll be in Houston. It'll be in Houston. That's where Sam won the war. We've got the battleground. Anybody from Houston? You've got that battleground down there. Oh, yeah. That's where Texas was born. It should be in Houston. Mayor of San Antonio said, oh, wait a minute. Where are the San Antonio folks? Oh, the Alamo. Cradle of Texas liberty. It'll be there on Alamo Plaza. Can't you just see it? The Daughters of the Republic of Texas, and I'm a member. On Sunday afternoon in front of that Alamo, every Sunday afternoon, stand there and say, we remember Crockett. We remember Bowie. We remember Travis. We remember Bonham. See, those are big Alamo heroes. They all came from Tennessee. We're the Tennessee folk. The whole Alamo was full of Tennessee except one guy. That was Jim Bowie. He was from Kentucky. Anybody from Kentucky? Thank you. I'm Southern Baptist. I'm used to the raised hand and testify. So feel free to testify during any of this presentation. Thank you, son. Oh, brother, I see your hand. I see your hand. We're the Southern Baptists, not many. Oh, really? You Scots are Southern Baptists? I thought all of you were Presbyterians. We'll get to that in a minute, because religion played a big part in Texas. Nevertheless, it'll be in San Antonio at the Alamo, the cradle of Texas liberty. Mayor of Austin said, Austin, our capital. Barbara said in 1821, Stephen F. Austin came with his group to Texas and settled on the Colorado River. He gave everybody that came with him riverfront property. Come with Stephen F., you get riverfront property. And that's our state capital there it'll be in the capital, in Austin. Anybody from Austin? Let's see. Let's not neglect Austin. Now, Fort Worth. Where are the Fort Worth folks? Amon Carter. Amon Carter, the czar of Fort Worth, came to that meeting. He said, I don't care what you do. I'm going to build Casa Manana over in Fort Worth. Well, he didn't even go to the meeting. He just sent that word. I'm not coming. I'm building Casa Manana. With Sally Rand, the stripper. No, she wasn't a stripper. She was a fan dancer. She came with her show to Casa Manana there in Fort Worth in 1936. Sally Rand and her nude ranch. So that's what they had in Fort Worth. And R.L. Thornton, where are the people from Dallas? R.L. Thornton went to that meeting and said, we have no history whatsoever in Dallas, Texas. But here's $10 million cash. Parties in Dallas. So we had that huge party, and I was there. Anybody at the Texas Centennial? Nobody wants to admit it. 1930. See your hand, brother? Yeah, we were there. 1936. I still have my Heinz pickle. Everybody walked in the door got a pickle. We had that huge celebration. Thornton came from East Texas and made a fortune in car loans. Everybody wanted a car when he came to Dallas. And he went in the car loan business, and soon was one of the big bankers in Dallas. And he always was asked, will you give money to the Dallas Symphony? He said, I surely will, just don't make me go to those concerts. He was an old farm boy, but did well in Dallas. And they said, all right, Thornton, you've gotten this Centennial. You better have an Esplanade. Are you going to have an Esplanade? He said, we're going to have two. And then he turned to his friend and said, what in the heck is an Esplanade? Down at the Fair Park, we have two Esplanades, and there are those buildings. It's called the Gem of Dallas. You may think Art Deco is ugly, but it's the greatest display of Art Deco in the world, and we preserve those buildings. And there's a bronze statue of R.L. Thornton that stands there looking out over the Esplanades. There he stands. We have a lot of characters in Dallas, and I'll just plunge right in with Brother Sam Houston. Sam Houston, loved and adored by most Texans. Sam Houston was born in Virginia. Any Virginians out there? Oh, you all are worse than Texans. The FFVs, First Family of Virginia. They that lovely, we're the ones from the four original southern colonies. Where are you? That's Virginia, North, South Carolina, and Georgia. Where are you, darlings? The four original southern colonies of of America, 4 colonies. And they have this lovely lilting, cultured accent. They are. You know, Jimmy Carter. Lovely lilting. Now, why do they have that? Because, see, and Vivian Lee played Scarlett O'Hara. She was English, and she could do that accent. You know, Fiddly-dee, I'll think of that tomorrow. I'll never be hungry again. She was English, and she could speak like those Southerners because that accent came from England. Those 4 colonies, those four colonies came from, the only people that lived in those colonies were the English and the black slaves. And those black slaves came with tribal accents, and that mixed together, and you have that lovely lilting accent. Now here in Texas, we got a whole different ballgame. Come Texas, you notice it right off. Kiki Friedman, we've got this character named Kiki Friedman. He ran for governor, didn't win, should have. But nevertheless, he said, when 2 Texas women meet, they do not say, "Oh, you look so nice." They say, "Well, look at you." Why? Because we were settled first in the Europeans, the Spanish. The Spanish came. Buenos dias, Buenos tardes. And then a huge mob of Germans came, filled up the hill country. They heard the land was free. The Germans had been destroyed in 1830 by Napoleon. And when they read, a book was published. Stephen F. Austin's cousin wrote a book. It went to Europe. She told how marvelous Texas was. The land was free. This is 1830. They were defeated. And they went, "Ach, und the land is free. Ach, will we go." Yeah. Here came this big mob of Germans. "Ach, wie geht's mir hier?" Yeah. Mixed with Buenos dias, Buenos tardes. You put "Ach, und wie geht's mir here?" And then that whole mob from Tennessee. And you put that together, you get "Howdy there, how are you?" It's a very uncultured accent. But it's here, we've got it, definitely so. Well, Sam Houston was born in Virginia. His father died, and his mother was left with a bunch of boys. She had to rear these boys. Where would she get any help to rear those boys? Well, her husband had a brother in Nashville, in Tennessee. And so she moved to Tennessee with these boys. Now, they were all doing pretty well, but this one was 6'6", and was unruly, too smart to be in school. Where are the school teachers out there? We'd run into these kids. I taught school for years. These kids that were too smart to be there, and they really were, but they had to be there, and they caused all kinds of trouble. Well, this one 6'6" named Sam, he just knew everything. He never did go to school. He lived with the Indians, learned the dialect, learned literature. He was brilliant. He really was a brilliant man. And grew up to join the Army. Thank goodness. That's what, that was good for him. He'd never been to school, roamed, knew everything, brilliant. Now he's in the Army. This is when he meets Andy Jackson, and they're immediate friends. That new biography on Andy Jackson mentions the fact that when Andy was dying, Sam came all the way from Texas with his son. Sam brought his son to look upon the dying face of the greatest American that ever lived, Andy Jackson. Have I taken good care of you from Tennessee? The volunteer state, they'll volunteer for anything, including that Alamo, but nevertheless. Sam is in Tennessee, is in the army down at Horseshoe Bend, Alabama, fighting the War of 1812 with Andy Jackson. And he's horribly wounded, and they throw him in a pile of dead bodies, but he rises. And Andy said, "You're the toughest man I've ever known, Sam. I'll never forget you." And Sam said, "Please don't." And Andy went back to Tennessee and became President of the United States of America. Sam went back to Tennessee and opened a school. How many have seen that school? It's dipped in bronze. You all are very proud of that school. He'd never been to school a day in his life. And he opened a school and made those kids call him Professor Houston. He'd never been to school in his life. Of course, his mother all this time, "I knew he'd turn out all right. I knew he'd be all right." He's now a school teacher. Andy writes him a letter. "Dear Sam, run for the House of Representatives from the state of Tennessee. Come up to Washington. I need you now." And Sam Houston ran for the House of Representatives, went to Washington. And by the way, I just learned this information. I was so excited. Sam Houston, when he was a representative from Tennessee up in Washington, got involved with one of the other representatives and beat him up, beat this man up, beat him up. And the man sued. And the lawyer, the attorney, representing Sam Houston was Francis Scott Key, who wrote our national anthem. How about that? I didn't know that. I love it. Well, Sam is in Washington, and Andy said, "Now go home to Tennessee and get married, and run for governor and get married, and serve the state of Tennessee as governor. And then President of the United States, like I did. That's what I did. You're going to do the same." So Sam went back to Tennessee, ran for governor, won, moved into the governor's mansion, and this is when the PR people came to him. "Sam, you're supposed to get married. You're a womanizer. You're a womanizer. You've got to get married. We are grooming you for the presidency of the United States of America. And womanizers don't always make good presidents." This is not a political speech. So Sam married one of the most beautiful women in Tennessee. Her name was Eliza Allen. I think most historians say she stayed about 8 weeks with him and left. He never mentioned her name again. He walked out of that governorship, left that governorship, walked out, joined the Indians, and became an alcoholic. Lying there dead drunk. They called him, he was known as the Raven. And they changed his name to Utica. Utica, that means big drunk. There he was, drunk. Andy wrote him a letter. "Well, you're ruined. You walked out of that governorship. You'll never be president of the United States, and now you're drunk. But there's one thing you can do for me, and you can do it drunk. Go down to Texas, defeat the Mexican army, and bring Texas in as a state." And that's what Big Sam was doing. March the 2nd, 1836, down in Texas, signing the Texas Declaration of Independence. And Colin McKinney, we have Collin County, McKinney, anybody from that area? He was the oldest signer of the Texas Declaration of Independence. But Sam sobered up and signed that document. They'd gotten the word the Alamo had fallen, Goliad had fallen, there was no hope. But Sam sobered up and said, "Yes, there is." And he got this bunch together, and they began to retreat. They backed up and backed up and backed up. He was called the Flavius Maximus of Texas, like the old Roman general. He backed up and backed up till he couldn't back up anymore. He said, "We're at the Gulf. We can't back up. We're here. This is it. We've got to fight." And on April 21st, they defeated there at San Jacinto, near Houston, defeated the Mexican army, Santa Anna. And Sam Houston said, "This is a republic and I'm president." And he served as president of the Republic of Texas. That was in 1836. 1836 when Texas was born, the republic. And Sam served 2 years as governor, still drinking heavily. And then he took a vacation to Alabama. Anybody from Alabama? Heck, he went to Alabama on a little vacation. Still drinking. He's 46 years old, and he meets a 21-year-old Baptist girl named Margaret Lee. Her parents had founded the Baptist Convention in Alabama. And all she knew was being a Baptist. Now she's in love with this 46-year-old drunk. She goes home and tells her mother, I'm getting married to Sam Houston. A 46-year-old drunk that's living with Indians. No! She said, I don't care, I love him. So they married, and she told him he couldn't drink anymore, and he never did. He moved her to Houston because that was his town. He bled all over Harris County in that battle, and named it, his blood built the city. So they moved to Houston and had 8 children. It was a wonderful marriage. 8 children, Sam and Margaret Lee, Sam Houston and Margaret Lee Houston. In 1854, Margaret got into church, and he was led to the Lord by Rufus C. Burleson, the pastor of First Baptist Church, Houston, Texas, first president of Baylor University in Waco. Anybody from Waco? Oh, he stands there again. Rufus Burleson stands there on the pigeons do not fly over that statue. Rufus C. Burleson. I went to high school with Rufus C. Burleson III. And he baptized Sam Houston in the river there and said to Sam, your sins are washed away. And Sam said, God help the fish. True story, true. He served as president of the Republic of Texas one more time, and then when Texas went into the Union in 1846, Sam went as our first senator up to Washington. Came back to Texas in 1860, said, Texas, there's going to be a war. Now what we're going to do, it's going to be an awful war. There's a war. We're going to secede from the Union, but we're going to become a nation once again under my leadership. Remember when we were a nation? Well, we'll do it again. And just let the North and South have a war. Not a bad idea. And everybody said, yay. And he was elected governor. But as time went on, those people there, the people there in Texas said, oh, my grandmother back in Mississippi, anybody from Mississippi? Oh, she'd hate me if I weren't a Confederate. Oh, my brother there in Mississippi would hate me. So Texas voted to go into the Confederacy. And it upset Sam so much he resigned as governor. Only person in the world that resigned as governor of 2 states. Tennessee over a woman, and Texas over the war. And he went home to Huntsville to die of a broken heart. He was dying there in Huntsville. Anybody from Huntsville? He was dying there in Huntsville. And he said, before I die, I want these 2 men to be beside me. 2 men he had hated all of the time. He hated these 2 guys. I want them at my bedside. And they came. And he said, I want one of you to stand here on this side, another on this side. Because I've always wanted to die like Jesus Christ between 2 thieves. And he's dead, but he lives on I-45. If you drive down I-45, Sam Houston stands there, this statue, it is so huge. You don't see it going south on 45, but if you're driving north on 45, he's in the middle of the highway. I know people who have found the Lord driving north. I believe, Lord. Why, Sam Houston. So, Margaret lived about 4 years longer, rather, and died too of a broken heart. I've got a real good southern tale about Huntsville, Texas. John Tyler was president when Texas went into the Union. John Tyler. But he really wasn't the force behind the statehood of Texas. It was a man named Richard Walker, a senator from Mississippi. Richard Walker said, I want Texas in the Union. And John Tyler said, that would be good. And that's why we have Tyler, Texas. That's about all he ever did. Because see, he's from Tennessee. He's not. Anyway, we have Tyler, Texas. But Richard Walker was responsible for the statehood of Texas. And so the people in Huntsville, when Texas went into the Union, decided to name that county Walker County. That's Walker County, Richard Walker County. He brought Texas into the Union. Now that was 1846. In 1863, now the war is raging. Richard Walker from Mississippi changed sides. He became a Union sympathizer. People in Huntsville said, we've got to get this name off of our county. We have a Yankee lover. That name on that county, we've got to get rid of it. And they met. Yeah, we're going to get rid of it. Someone said, but it'll screw up the maps. Well, then go out and find another Walker. That county is named for Samuel Walker, the greatest Texas Ranger that ever lived. This is law enforcement, not baseball. Samuel Walker with Samuel Colt. Samuel Walker and Samuel Colt created a gun called the Walker Colt. Very rare gun. It was just made for the Rangers. There's one down in the Ranger Museum in Waco, a Walker Colt. I saw one on the Antique Roadshow. You know that guy, here this guy comes with this gun. You know, here's the gun. Oh, it's a Walker Colt. It's a Walker Colt. Where did you get it? Well, grandmother had it in her top drawer. Yeah, you've seen the show. Very rare gun. But it didn't do Samuel Walker, the great Texas Ranger, didn't do him any good because he was shot and killed in the Mexican War. He was shot and killed in Monterey. And his last words were, bury me by the river, boys, by the river in San Antone. And they took his body and buried him by the river. Now, Texas Ranger Museum opened in Waco. And somebody said, wouldn't it be nice to have Samuel Walker buried out in the front yard? This great Texas Ranger. You come into the museum, you're saying, oh. See, that's why that series was called Walker, Texas Ranger. Because of this Ranger. I love it. Anyway, we'd love to have him in the, where is he? Well, he's by the river in San Antone. We'll go get him. Said the Rangers down there, the daughters of the Republic of Texas stood on that grave with shotguns. You are not moving Samuel Walker. And the Rangers said, okay, girls, put down the guns, we won't. So he's still by the river in San Antone. That's a story of Sam Houston, of Samuel Walker. We have some strange politics in Texas, really odd politics. We had the Fergusons. Anybody from Bell County, there in Bell County, Ma and Paul Ferguson. Ma and Paul Ferguson. Paul was governor of Texas. He was rural. He was they called him Farmer Jim Ferguson. Paul Ferguson. He was governor in 1914. 14. And then he served until 1916. He served 2 years as governor, and then you have to run again. That's in the Constitution. So he's from 14 to 16, Paul Ferguson. in 1917, Paul Ferguson had stolen everything in Texas that was not nailed down. So he was impeached. See, that's the only governor we threw out. We impeached Paul Ferguson. Well, he couldn't run anymore. So he ran his wife, Maul. Now, she was the first woman to ever be elected a governor in the United States. There was a governor that finished out her husband's term, a woman. But to be elected, a woman elected in Texas, Maul Ferguson. And she said, now Texans, you'll have 2 governors for the price of 1. Because Paul is going to be by my side. His enemies kept him from running again. But I'm running. And a vote for me is a vote for Paul. And she was elected. She served 2 years. And then when she went out, she opened the prison. State prison in Huntsville, and let everybody out. She just said, go and sin no more. The joke of the day was, oh, pardon me. Well, Paul Ferguson would. She turned everybody out. She let out Clyde Barrow, as in Bonnie and Clyde. He was up for life. She turned him loose. Clyde don't sin anymore. He hooked up with Bonnie and killed all those people. They would get the Texas Rangers to round them all up again, because she let them all out. Now, she ran again in 1932, and she ran on the Roosevelt ticket, see, because everybody was a Democrat in Texas. For years and years and years. We didn't know there was a Republican Party. Everybody in Texas was a Democrat. And she ran with Roosevelt in 1932. New deal with Roosevelt, new deal with Maul. And Maul won again. Now this is when the Hispanic preachers came to her and said, Maul, we have all these Hispanic children in Texas, and we need to have the Bible translated into Spanish. And Maul said, if the English language was good enough for Jesus Christ, it's good enough for the children of Texas. Culture of that woman. She won again. Then in 1938, she ran against a man no one could beat. Now this man had a hillbilly band, and he was on the radio. And at noon, straight up noon, everybody in Texas stopped at noon and turned on the radio. And the announcer would say, WBAP, Fort Worth, Texas, in cooperation with Burris Mills, makers of fine light crust flour and other fine baking products, the Light Crust Doughboys are on the air. Never do brag, never do boast, sing our song from coast to coast. We're the Light Crust Doughboys from Burris Mills. Listen, everybody near and far, if you want to know who we are, we're the Light Crust Doughboys from Burris Mills. Here's our fine leader, W. Leo Daniel. Come on in, W. Lee, sing your song. Beautiful, beautiful Texas, where the beautiful blue bonnets grow. We're proud of our forefathers who fought in the Alamo. You can go to the mountains and prairies, down where the sea breezes blow, but you're still in beautiful Texas, the most beautiful state that I know. And he made biscuits. Thank you, thank you. Pass the biscuits, Pappy. Pappy O'Daniel. Now, Pappy served as governor, and then Pappy ran for the Senate. Senator W. Leo Daniel. And he beat a man in that Senate race. And W. Leo Daniel went to Washington. And then he left Washington. That seat was open. And this man said, I was beaten by those doughboys, but I'm never going to be beaten in Texas again, ever. So he ran for that seat that was vacated by W. Leo Daniel, And so did another governor, Coke Stevenson, ran for that seat. And Coke Stevenson won that election. And this man was furious. So he went down to a henchman he had down in South Texas by the name of George Parr. And he said, "Parr, I've lost this election." And Parr said, "Now, Lyndon, you haven't lost, because we haven't voted down here in South Texas yet. It's only 16 days after the election. They all went out to the cemetery and voted." The joke of the day was, Grandpa came back from the dead last night to vote, but didn't come by to see us. That was a joke. That's Box 13. It haunted Lyndon Johnson all of his career. They bring up that Box 13 because it disappeared. Box 13, and it should have, they knew it. That's the only precinct in the world, Box 13, where everybody voted in alphabetical order. Lyndon went to Congress, and then on, of course, to the presidency of the United States. And Lady Bird was always back here in Texas planting shrubs. She always had such lovely shrubs. She'd say, "Oh, we've got to have all beautiful shrubs." And so we've had some great governors, very outstanding governors. I think all of you remember Ann Richards, certainly, our lady governor, and Connolly, who was before that, who was shot in that motorcade in Dallas when Kennedy was assassinated. The only thing that was a horrible day in Dallas, and the only thing that helped us out was that TV show with J.R. Ewing. I do tours of Dallas, and I have a tour guide friend, and she had this tour. She was on the bus with a tour group. And Ray Hunt of Hunt Oil was on that bus. And she didn't know it. She said, J.R. Ewing was patterned after H.L. Hunt. And Ray said, "That's the nicest thing anyone has ever said about my father." Concluding with that story of that book. Remember the book that went to Europe and all the Germans, "Ja, wie will go"? That book was written by a cousin of Stephen F. Austin. Stephen F. Austin was reared in Connecticut. His father, Moses Austin, was an explorer. Stephen F. Austin, who was the father of Texas, was one of these kids that was puny. They called him Puny Boy as a kid. There's old Puny Boy Austin, Puny Boy. Stood there, one of those, I was sick. And his father said, "You are sick, and you can't be out in the woods with me. You're going to stay with my brother who lives in Connecticut." His name, Moses Austin, was the father of Stephen F., but the uncle's name was Elijah. See, the mother was hung up on Old Testament prophets. And so he was reared in Connecticut. And Elijah, this uncle, with whom he stayed, had this older daughter, beautiful, Mary Austin. Mary Austin. She was about 12 years older than little Stephen F., little cousin. And Mary Austin, there in Connecticut, went to Yale University's party, a Yale University party. And there she met this handsome man, Horace Holly. He was a Presbyterian minister, Horace Holly. And they fell in love and married. And then she said, "Now we've got to take care of Puny Boy. That's part of the deal." And he was a preacher, so he said, "Okay." Well, Horace began to preach at the Presbyterian Church there in Connecticut. And he'd gotten involved, Horace Holly had gotten involved with that bunch that worshiped God by a pond and in the forest. That's Emerson, Thoreau, that bunch. They found God in the clouds. They found God in the trees. Well, he began to preach that, and the Presbyterians threw him out. God is not in a tree. He's at First Presbyterian Church. Out. Well, he went to Boston. Now, Puny Boy's with them. See, Puny Boy was educated in Connecticut, Massachusetts. They're in Boston. Anybody from Boston? He went to Boston, began to preach, God's in the clouds, the trees, and the Presbyterians threw him out of Boston. So he ended up at Transylvania College in Kentucky, which was a Presbyterian school. That was before Alexander Campbell and the rising of the Disciples of Christ. So Stephen F. Austin graduated from Transylvania College in Kentucky, and then went on to fulfill his father's dream, exploring. And Moses never got down to do in Texas what he wanted to do. So Stephen F. Austin took the families there into Texas after he graduated from Transylvania College. Now what happened to this cousin with this preacher that was in the clouds? Well, the preacher died. And the cousin, Mary Austin Holly, joined her cousin, Stephen F., because he had a little village, Austin's Colony. She thought, I've taken care of him all my life, and now I'm a widow, and he can take care of me. So she joined his colony, this cousin, Mary Austin Holly. And while she was there, she wrote a book. She wrote the book about Texas, the first book ever written in the English language about Texas. She named it Texas. Michener was late with that title. And in that book, she describes this glorious land. Oh, it's gorgeous. And then she threw this in for her husband. She said, if you're looking for God, he's in Texas. Beautiful state of Texas. God reigns in Texas. Well, she went up to Boston and published that book, and it did. It was translated into languages, all the languages of Europe. It went to Europe. And see, that's what the Germans read. You know, und I've been looking for God und all this time, und ja, and the land is fleeing. There. See, and everybody began to come. Everybody that read that book came to Texas. Mary Austin Holly. She was known as the Lady Ambassador of Texas. And she planned to go back and write the biography of Puny Boy, but see, he died when he was 40. He was puny. And just boom, gone. So she never got his biography written. But that book made a great difference. The book by Mary Austin Holly. And putting all this together, what I've told you, I will conclude with the words of Mary Austin Holly. If you're looking for God, he's in Texas. Thank you.